Okay, we are going to solve literal equations. Literal sounds like letters because the majority of what we're going to do has letters in them. You might have recalled any formulas that you've looked at before, and that's kind of like what we're going to do today. In order to solve for literal equations, what you're going to do is you're going to solve for the indicated variables. So I'm going to give you the formula or give you the equation, and I'm going to tell you which variable you're going to isolate. All right, so you're going to solve it by isolating one side down to one term, and you'll understand that as we go along. So if you have more than one term, like 2 terms or 3 terms, you got to get rid of those other terms until you're left with the one term with the variable that we're looking for. Okay, let's begin with number 2. I'm going to do all the evens for you. So on number 2, notice I equals PRT. This is your interest formula. I is equal to the principal times the rate times the time. We want to get the R by itself. So notice I've circled the R because that's what I'm interested in. Now, this is one term. So since that's what I'm trying to do is get it down to one term, now what I can do is I can get rid of the P and the T. Now, it's P times R times T. And the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by PT. Now remember, when you divide, what happens is that these cancel out to 1, leaving just the R. And you're left with I divided by the principal times the time. And that is your literal equation. You solve for R. You got R by itself. On number 4, we want to get H by itself. Area is equal to 1/2 the base times the height. So this is a triangle. So notice we want to get H by itself. Now, I could divide by 1/2 and base because it's all multiplication. But you know what? That seems kind of odd, dividing both sides by 1/2 and base. But you might recall that you can also, instead of dividing by a fraction, you can multiply by its reciprocal, and that's what I want to do. So I'm going to do this one first. I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. 2 times A is 2A. Now, when you multiply by the reciprocal, that cancels out to 1. So you're left with B times H on this side. Now again, we want to get H by itself. So it's B times H. We want to divide by B. And you're left with H, your height, is equal to 2 times the area divided by the base. And that's how you solve for the height. Now, in number 6, it's a little different. We're going to solve for x. So notice there's 2 terms. I want to get this term by itself because it has the x that I'm looking for. So how do I get rid of the 4y? Well, 4y is being added, so I'm simply, let me get rid of this so it doesn't look like a division. You're going to subtract the 4y on both sides. This cancels out. Now bring down your negative 3x. Bring down your equal sign. Now I want you to notice something. These two are not the same. They're not like terms, so you can't combine them and make y. That's not correct. So what you have to do is you put them down beside each other. 5 is positive minus 4y. Now you have 2 terms on this side. You're then going to divide by negative 3. Don't add the 3 because it's negative 3 times x. But you have to divide every term by negative 3. And you're left with x equals. Now, I don't care what 5/3 is. I know that's a negative 5 over 3. So notice I brought the negative up top. Now, a negative over negative is a positive. So I'm going to put plus 4. Now, I could put 4y over 3, or I can actually bring that y out to the side. It means the same thing. And there we've solved for x. Now, on number 8, I kind of made it a little bit more difficult. We're going to solve for r. So here's the r. Now notice, it's pi times r squared times h. So I'm going to get rid of the pi and the h on both sides. So pi and h. Now notice, canceled, canceled. I'm left with r squared equals a, which is the area, divided by pi times the height. Now, here's the thing. We haven't talked about this, but this is r squared. the way you undo a square is you got to take the square root. Now, we haven't talked about that. Now, when you take the square root, remember, you got to take the square root of the whole side. So this cancels the square. You're left with r. And you're left with the square root of a divided by pi times h. And we'll discuss this later on a little bit more, what that means. But for right now, this is what this looks like. Okay? On number 10, we're going to solve for the h. Now, it's one term, so we're going to divide by pi r squared on both sides. And what you're left with, the pi's cancel out, the r squares cancel out, and you're left with h equals volume divided by pi times the radius squared. See, now as you start to move through this, it becomes a little easier. You'll see some of the steps repeat itself. Okay, on this particular one, looks a little strange, but we're going to solve for m. Now remember, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that 1/2. Remember, how do you get rid of 1/2? It's 1/2 times m. So we're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. Now, you get 2 times k times e. You don't have to put the multiplication dot in the middle, so you just put it together. 1/2 and 2 cancel out. Oh, sorry, wrong thing. The 1/2 and the 2 cancel out, and you're left with m and v squared. Well, here, I still want to solve for m, so it's multiplication. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to divide everything by v squared. And I'm left with m equals 2 times k e all over v squared. Number 14, I'm going to solve for r. It's one term, so I'm going to divide everything by 2 pi. And I'm left with r is equal to your circumference divided by 2 times pi. And last but not least, we're going to solve for h. Now it's length times width times height. I'm going to divide both sides by length and width. The length and width cancel out, leaving me with h. And you simply do 3,000 divided by whatever the length times the width is. Now you don't have to put that dot. You can just leave that alone. But that would be your final answer.